Good evening, everyone. Thank you for your patience. Of course, you know how it works in the world of technology. There are always issues and glitches. So, if you know of anyone that you had encouraged to join us today, tell them that they can come back. So, we're just so grateful to be here this evening. We're talking about special topic, suicide, substance use and abuse and addiction. And and in this season of life, we know that many people have been challenged as it relates to these areas, whether in their families, with friends. We know in the culture, we hear so many things about these topics. And so we know even amongst ourselves in the faith community, we, have this issue as well. So it's not just people in the world, people in entertainment, it's people everywhere that are challenged by these concerns. So we just want to make sure that we are in a good place and space and that we're able to, again, communicate and so that you can have an understanding of these sensitive subjects. So we're so grateful again that you joined us. We're giving people time to log back in, join us as we begin this discussion. And we know everybody's on a schedule, so we will get right to it. And we're so grateful to have our guest, Miss Robin Neverdon. And I want her to introduce herself, but I want you to know that this is one of our monthly RC chats sponsored by the Renaissance Center, and of course hosted by myself, Dr. Carla Debnam, and also is a outreach of the Morning Star Baptist Church. So we're so grateful just to be here this evening. So, Robin, if you can just introduce yourself in a couple sentences or however you feel free to do so, and then we can get into our discussion.
Oh, okay. Well, good evening to everyone. Thank you for joining us on this special day of being able to try to help those who are hurting with this media live streaming. I am Robin Neverdon. I am a recovering addict. I am in my 17th year of recovery. I am just honored and grateful that Dr. Debnam did ask me to join and maybe give some insight and helping those who were like I once was. And with that, we'll turn over to you, Dr. Debnam.
Okay, so we want to start off with the basics because a lot of times we know people that have struggled with addiction. And personally, in my family, we've had several members struggling with addictions of either alcohol or drugs or other areas of addiction. So therefore, it's not just other people's families, it's our families, us. So with that being said, how do we define addiction? How does a person know whether they have one or their loved one has one?
Well, when we look up the word addiction, it comes as a compulsive need for and of a use of a habit forming substance. It is accepted as a mental illness in the diagnostics nomenclature and results in substantial health, social, and economic problems. And basically, all that says, if we break it down, is that you have become addicted to a uh, drug that has taken you outside of yourself, may have reduced you to animalistic behaviors, where you have basically have yourself involved in activities and things of that sort. I know what it had me doing, being out doing things that are for just to get another one. It's unfortunate because a lot of times we think that those of us who have been through the drug addiction And those who are still suffering, that it becomes more than that as they've done more study and things, because we have mental illness and things as well, where we may have suffered from trauma, where we may have had, some people have been homeless, some people have become unemployed and became, to been exposed to certain type of things, and which caused them to become addicts. And when we become addicts, it's a whole different lifestyle where you are just existing. You're no longer living anymore. And it's such even more so now, how we have with the society with our younger people as young as 10 years old, who are just completely strung out. Now they have all these different drugs and things that they have out here now that I didn't get to use. And I'm so grateful to God for that, because I know I would be dead with the fentanyl overdoses, because they have it laced in so many
Yeah.
things. The young adults who have, we get to see them every day on the news. I don't think it's just
Yeah.
by chance that they're just out here breaking all these laws. They have some issues that are going on, and because I get to deal with that level of care for the young adults from 18 to 80 and younger than that, I am always in contact of how the disease of addiction is just taking us away, where we don't get all the reports
Yeah.
daily on the news.
Yeah, that's true. And I like what you said. It really takes you outside of yourself. And it's not something that is easily explained, because it could begin anywhere on a person's life cycle. It could be, like you said, once you lose your job and you get depressed and maybe, searching for a way to escape, and then it becomes something. Or some people, they may have taken painkillers for an ailment, a car accident of some sort, and then end up, overusing those prescription drugs, and then turn to, illicit drugs to get that same relief or escape from the pain. So it's so many different things. And what we don't know, even thinking about my own family members' struggles, is the level of trauma that people have experienced that may have led them to cope with addiction. So some people were in the military and saw atrocities, or had to be one that perpetrated those atrocities, and had to come home and try to live a quote unquote normal life, but can't unsee what they've seen. So many ways that people get introduced into the area of addiction. But we kind of already segued into question number two. Why do some people, get to that point where they go from maybe occasional use? We hear about recreational use of drugs, or I just drink, after work once a week, not realizing that sometimes those things can lead to harmful levels. So how can we tell
I
if
think that
we or our loved ones have moved on? Yeah.
Dr. Debnam, I think this number one,
Mm-hmm.
I definitely remember experimental, just experimenting,
Mm-hmm.
smoking marijuana,
Yeah, definitely.
experimenting drinking. I definitely remember the days of just hanging out with some of my peers who may have been doing it way more often than I was. And then after that, the company in which I was keeping uh, grew on to higher drugs, where it was no longer just maybe experimenting on the weekends. It became a habit where I would have to have it, especially when you're dealing with heroin. I can remember experimenting just with
Mm-hmm.
cocaine, and I wound up smoking crack, smoking cocaine, and then went to the crack,
Yeah.
and then experimenting with the heroin, and then you become addicted because your body, it needs it. So I have had several clients who have said to me, well, Ms. Neverdon, I don't really know why I'm here, because I only do it maybe 3 or 4 times a week. But how are you only going to do heroin 3 or 4 times a week when we know that your body needs it every day? So then I have people who I know that work at very wonderful jobs, and they say that they're just casual users, but they have have to have it every day. So that's not casually doing anything. And then what happens is when we come over to the dark side of addiction, that's the nice side. When you think you're just able to do it periodically, you don't have to worry about emptying your bank account out. You still can go to work and you can function and do all those type of things. And then it rolls over to another side, like myself. Well, I know I can't work and get high. I couldn't do both. That was impossible.
Yeah,
So, the
right.
disease of addiction, which you can't beat, and it took entirely over. So you go from having a job where you're wearing your suits every day to where you're sitting in the crack house to where your legs swell up and you're not moving for 3 or 4 days until all your money is gone, and your bills aren't being paid, and then you come up with all these type of excuses, or you become homeless, or the worst, of course, is when we overdose and die. Those are the end result and effects of
Mhm.
those, because you have people who still tend to think because they may have these homes that they can go to that they're really not addicts, or
Yeah,
but then their rent may be $25 or $80 a month, and they can't pay that. Or we have people think because they have families that they can go back to, uh, that they're really not addicts because they always can go home and have some place to take a bath until you become homeless and you have to live in a vacant house, or things of that nature, which I've seen. I'm grateful to God I didn't have to do that. Or those who may have had healthy weight and they were doing well till they wind up having HIV or AIDS or things of that nature, because what comes along with the drug, with being a drug addicted, sometimes for some of us, uh, like myself, becoming a prostitute, having to go out here to sell
hmm,
narcotics, marrying the dope man, those kind of things that happen. You're going into stores to steal. What became a normalcy for you in life is no longer normal. So those things happen when the disease takes over and you know that you're an addict.
yeah. And those are things that I know, like you said, people uh kind of shy away from saying they're in that situation or they're headed in that direction
Mhm.
because they're functional, they go to work, they have families, they have careers, they still show up to basketball practice or games for their children. So they feel like I'm engaging in everyday life. Certainly, I can't have this addiction, but it's such a sneaky. It sneaks up on you. That's what I'm gonna call it.
Absolutely.
It
It,
sneaks up on you to the point where you are no longer functional, where your family has turned their back, to safeguard their own well-being, to where your job no longer, your coworkers can no longer cover for you because maybe they've been doing your work. Um, and those kinds of things. And you're right, people of all walks of life have had this issue. So it's not just
it,
those people,
and
you
you
know.
know because the white collar workers who go into work with the nice suits on, and then you notice that they still have the same suit on 4 days later, but they smell horribly. Or
Mm-hmm.
the ones that have to go into the bathroom, because I've seen them and I've dated some, and they come out and their shirt has the blood stain because they had to go into the bathroom, to shoot up. Or
Right.
the ones that just basically pulling lint out of their pockets and they're walking around in shambles, hair not combed, maybe have not washed their face because they had to go stay out for 3 or 4 days, haven't been home and do the things in which they do, but they think because they still unemployed. Those are signs to look at. When there,
Yeah.
I don't know anyone that ever has felt that they have, no matter what job they had, and maybe able to afford. We look at Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, Prince, everybody else, or maybe they can afford to get high every day. That something is not changing somewhere. Maybe attitude, your
Yeah.
behavior, your thinking,
Yeah.
the sleeping habits, and things of that nature.
Yeah. And it's such a, it's something again that if you're not used to it or aware of it, or you don't know people in your family, it
Mhm.
seems like these are things, you're right, that are in the movies or that are just for people in entertainment and sports. But these
Exactly.
are people that we live and see on a regular basis. And so we want, you audience to understand that. Also, if you have questions, don't forget to put them in the chat and let us know. So we're here to answer any of the questions, because we don't want you to see your loved ones go down this path, or if they're down this path, it helps you to understand it and at least be aware of what the struggle is. And again, I have my own personal experience with family members, so that helps me to be sensitive to it, not just from a professional standpoint, but just from life. And so
exactly.
these are things we need to know, because not only is it related to trauma or a mental health disorder, we know that sometimes these addictions can cause us to have long-term medical issues. Can you bring that up? I didn't ask you that, but I'm thinking about this now. What medical concerns should people have?
Well, number one, we know that any narcotic for long-term use, you see people sometime with their teeth no longer, they don't have any teeth, where their teeth have just rotted out completely. You see people who are bent over. We have kidney disease. We have liver disease. We have lung disease. We have blood disease. People risking HIV. They get AIDS, STDs, where because at that point, nobody's really, you're not going to the doctor if you're really getting high. You're really not going to do that. I know I didn't. I didn't have time to go to the doctor, but thank God when I did go. So you have those kind of ailments. You have bone deficiencies and things that happen over a period of time. You have loss of sight, where you get glaucoma and things from the excessive use of cocaine and things of that nature that happen. You have heart disease, which happens. You have you go through high blood pressure, things in which we think normally can happen to people they age because of bad health or bad eating habits and things of that nature. Keep on using narcotics, it's going to happen to you that way, and it's going to happen quickly. My mother, unfortunately, it was just horrible watching my mom. My mother took care of her for 14 years. She was the first person that got me high for cocaine. In her later years, she just passed away. September the 20th will be 1 year, and I got to watch her and what the drugs had done to her, and she died at 80 years old. It was absolutely horrible, the deterioration of her lungs, with the dementia, where she had COPD, which was absolutely horrible to watch, but a horrible death to watch, which she had cancer in her lung. One lung was working at 7%. It was just absolutely horrible, especially when it comes in the family. My father, who was a drug addict, unfortunately, he died. He was on dialysis for 18 years. He was the longest living one at Barnes Secure on dialysis. So, those kind of things. These are the result of what drugs do for you. When you think about it, you have to make it make sense. If you think about the idea of anybody who thinks that they're using narcotics and because they have a job that they're okay, you have to ask yourself, or maybe they're not asking themselves, is this benefiting me doing a drug in which I'm going to need on a daily basis, sustaining my life? It's taken away from it. So, once you get outside of the realm, I'm not well, I will never be completely well, but I know that I will never use as long as I follow the way of not using, but not.
You muted.
And it gets more personal when you're dealing with at home with family members. My family, I come from a very big family. They have got to watch me over the years, not just this time when I was clean before. There's no stone unturned. I talk about stuff that they may not even want to hear, but I certainly tell them. They ask me, they know I'm going to tell them the truth because it's extremely important, because I don't have a problem being transparent. Being raised up by my grandmother and aunts and uncles, abandonment issues, and all types of things can lead us to that. But it is a disease that we can't beat.
Yeah, and the mentioning of abandonment issues, things that you were out of your control as a child, these are early traumas that can
Absolutely.
lend itself to,
Molestation,
a
rape, all
person
types of
being,
things.
yeah,
Exactly.
being not being safe.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
this is something that is going on now, even now with many of our youth and young adults. We do know we saw a rise in their suicidal ideation and even outcomes. Part of it is because over the last several years, not just during the COVID pandemic, they had begun to feel unsafe, or that things in their lives, they weren't being protected, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
from bullying. We see a lot of bullying, a lot of, the bullying alone is enough. So let's
It's
stop
harming.
there.
Mm-hmm.
It's really because it's nonstop, it's 24/7, but also with them sometimes parenting themselves, also just being exposed at earlier and earlier ages to things that children hopefully shouldn't be uh privy to. So whether that's other, again, parents or family members with addictions, they could be around those and feel unsafe and be in harm's way. They could be going to school, and peer pressure is a part of their their entry into addictions, like we said this earlier, but also into some suicidal and self-harming behavior. So some of it, the substances is a form of self-harming behavior, but also the suicidal piece has increased. And have you seen that in your work, where there's a combination of the two, that sometimes the substance
Absolutely.
use goes along with the suicidal? Okay.
Oh, and one
Can
thousand
you
percent.
speak to that?
I can. I definitely
Mhm.
can. It's 1,000% that I've seen what they call cutters, where you have a lot of drug users who definitely have tried to commit suicide. It's a dual diagnosis. You have the mental,
Yeah.
and then you have the drug
Mhm.
abuse with that.
Right.
And if we don't address the mental, we're going to continue to try to numb it with the drugs. So that's what happens. So we have people attempting suicide, jumping out of windows, running in front of cars, cutting their arms so they bleed to death. Of course, when we overdose or things of that nature, we're killing ourselves anyway. With that, I have had clients where had half faces where they blew their brains out. Um, is thinking that being just so psychotic that thinking that the drug is telling them to go ahead and kill themselves. People just getting in accidents where not only did they kill themselves and crash their cars up and run into trees, they kill their family members with them. I have seen clients where they have survived, where they wanted to kill themselves and had their mate in the car, their children in the back, and the children. I mean, I have just witnessed and seen a whole lot of things, and to know that they have these type of conversations and trying to survive in it, and clearly, after the drug is gone, we're just left with themselves. So suicide definitely plays a part of that. Fatal and non-fatal
Mhm.
attempts. You have the
Yeah,
fatal attempts,
definitely.
and you have the non-fatal attempts. You have people who hang themselves. They have drugs which mentally can take you to a whole nother level where all you want to do is just kill yourself, period. Uh,
Right.
from
Yeah.
what you've gone through, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the thing, when we are trying to understand even the increase in suicide amongst Black youth in particular, it's
Mm-hmm.
not just one thing, but there are sometimes those mental health disorders left untreated or
Mm-hmm.
not treated the way that is needed to be treated with the youth, but also some of these other things that give uh, give way to that. So for instance, not having a great support system in the
Absolutely.
home, not having peer group approval, and we mentioned that earlier, but also it's just a sense of belonging and community is really important for people to that aren't substance users that are suicidal to have that part.
Absolutely.
But also if you're abusing and using substances, those people also need a sense of belonging, community, love, and acceptance as well. So it's really the human condition is for us to want to be loved and cared for and protected. It's sometimes when we don't feel that or get that in the way that is meaningful to us. I was listening to a podcast last week, and what it was saying about African American care in the medical system is sometimes, of course, we don't get the same care
Absolutely.
as other people in the community. But not only do we not get the same level of care, we don't get the same level of concern.
Absolutely.
And when they added that piece, that really did something, because not only do we not get the same level of care, that could be in treatment, that could be in medications offered, that could be in many ways we don't get the same level of care, but we also don't get the concern, so people don't go the extra mile to make sure we have all of the paperwork filled out, or that we've done our due diligence for certain things, which again, that gap in care and concern leads us to kind of cycle back through these unfortunate circumstances of addiction, suicide, suicidal ideation. What have you noticed that in the field of recovery, that is that getting better, the care and concern,
I
or?
think I think that Dr. Debnam, and honestly speaking, I think society has been a big disservice in the past 10 to 12 years with trying to assist with the drug addiction, with the homelessness. No one wants to be homeless. No one wants to be a drug addict. I think that the same way my mother gave me a narcotic, I also believe it's the same way what's going on with the younger generation, where the younger kids now, their parents are on narcotics. They may have introduced them to some things. A lot of them have. I think that the emergency room is just a setup for when people get sick, when they get overdosed, they go into the emergency rooms. They are not getting the level of care or concern. They know already when you're coming in. If they can look at your arms, if you shoot up, they can look at how you're looking. If you're looking dehydrated, if you're looking, they know that some of them coming there because they're homeless. They just have nowhere to go. I think they just think the quick remedy is basically, let's just give them something so they can just get out of here. They barely want to touch you or anything of that nature. And I've seen it happen where they do not even want to touch you. They leave you for dead. They'll set you in the hallway forever, and nothing still happens, or not even to be have an observation. So, and the reason why I know, I remember going to the hospitals when they would call and say, well, your mother's in here again, because my mother would get paranoid. She knew when things would just really get really bad, and she would try to make her way to the hospital, and I would get in there, and they would just try to treat her just like she was just another addict, or she would barely make it down the street and just get into the door, and or someone would be off to the side and would laugh, or whatever the case may be, and it's just disheartening. They don't tell us about all the deaths that just come in, or they may have been able to do more with them. They're not going to discuss any of that, or all our younger adults, well, our younger generation who are to go into the hospital or being shot or overdose as well, just like the older ones do as well, or things of that nature. You're sitting in the hospital, you don't have any insurance. That's bad, and I do agree that I think our people unfortunately suffer way more than anything. I think that Obamacare and the Medicare system has been a plus to some, but it has been detrimental to others. I do. And I think that what happens is a lot of times they feel the only way to keep us the way they can keep us is to continue to give us what they think that we want. So now you don't, if you're not on Suboxone, you can act, and I'm not putting down anybody that's on it. I'm not putting
Right.
anybody that's down on methadone. But I know if I decided today tomorrow that, and I have been high in years, if I decided today tomorrow that I think that I may need to get on Suboxone or methadone, they're going to give it to me. It didn't
Yeah.
used to be like that, where you could just go ahead
Right.
and you would already have to have had a problem to be introduced to getting something else. So, it's we got to make some better choices. We definitely have to
Yeah.
make some better
Yeah.
choices, and we definitely have to use the help which is given to us.
Yeah. And I'm glad you made it clear. It's not like people, um, haven't tried to get help
Mm-hmm.
or wanted a change in their lives. It's just that the help that they've reached out to get, there was no
Absolutely.
care or concern in some of those cases. And so and that's something for us to be sensitive to as a community, that this crisis isn't just the problem of that person or
Mm-hmm.
and their family. This is a community uh, in crisis, as we see so many uh, unexplained, like you said, deaths, and unexplained, we're going to say violence, and
Mm-hmm.
unexplained ways people uh, are dying now, whether it's suicidal ideation turned into actual attempts that have become fatal. And these are some things. So don't forget and send us your questions. I know we're deep today, but we need to be, because these are things in our community that are are literally killing us. Our addictions. It's not a weakness in your character. It's not has nothing to do with your upbringing and knowing better and all of that. Those things, throw that out of the window. This is a public health crisis
Mm-hmm.
that we are in, that we can do something about. Um, but it's going to take all hands on deck, and it is multifaceted. It's not a one size fits all solution, and everybody that's having these challenges aren't coming, from the same perspective. So we do have to keep that in mind. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
as a part of that, I do want to just mention to people, as we said, with Black youth and young adults, a lot of it is peer based. Some of it is mental health based, with the suicidal ideation and suicide attempts, and unfortunate the loss of life that we've seen and witnessed year after year.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are things that we're working towards. Uh, what would you say to a family, a friend out there? How can we help people turn it around? If they're thinking suicidal thoughts, or taking that extra step in the wrong direction of addiction or other unhealthy behaviors, what suggestions do you have for family
I would
members
definitely
and friends?
say to them that there is hope because we have the resources that are available. We have hospitals and institutions. We have hotlines. We have 911. We have crisis centers. Um, they can call me. I'm grateful I have my own supportive housing myself. I'm partnered with quite a few programs, but I do have that you can reach out to people who have been there. That's one thing. I would not hesitate. People don't like the police, but police, when you call to the police stations and things of that nature, they do have information where you can get that from. And no matter what age you are, because I work in the realm from young children to 80 years old or whatever that are on narcotics, drugs, and things of that nature, where the help is there for them. And because I've invested in so much, we have the resources. Like we definitely have to use what is being given to us to help. If you have children or dealing with things, get their mental health addressed. It's no problem getting
Yes.
therapists. If you have Medicaid, if they don't even have insurance, they'll get you some. That's the thing about it. If you need some help, so there's really no excuse for that. You have a family member that's on narcotics and they're strung out, and they're telling you they want to get some help. There are some programs that I would not recommend anyone to, and then there are programs that I definitely would recommend some to go to, because the help is there and it's available for them. So they don't have to live the horrible life of being converted into the despair of what we have to look at every day when we get into our cars or ride into the city or even in the county. In this genre, things are just absolutely horrible. Get the help that's available. For those that you have someone, well, I just don't want to get high anymore. Talking to them honestly, getting a support networks group. We do have Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholic Anonymous. We have the different places where they can go to for shelter, things of that nature, where their job is to help us to get better for those who are still out there, so they can get better, so they can become more productive, for the children to be able to have a real childlike upbringing, so they can be able to be more comfortable with their peers, so they won't feel like they have to go into the shower and hang themselves and die,
Yeah.
or someone is
Right.
making them use narcotics or drugs. Those things happen.
Yes, they do. They do. And one thing that we can do too to help is to eliminate some of the temptations and the access to firearms and other ways that
Absolutely.
children and youth are self-harming themselves
Mm-hmm.
and putting others in harm's way. And again, we hear a lot of this with a lot of the school shooting people. They're saying that, well, I was bullied, so I went back to my school,
Mm-hmm.
to retaliate, so these are some things that people are feeling a certain kind of way about themselves, and they are expressing it towards others. But also with the addictions, that, like you said, if we can reach out to help. One of the questions that came through: what was your turning point, and how did you overcome?
Well, I'm gonna be extremely honest. My turning point was the last time, because I'm a convicted felon 3 times, and the last time when I went to prison, my twin brother, he's an attorney, and he told him that I had to go away, and he sent me away. Well, he didn't send me away. The judge sent me away, but they went along with what he said, because I knew at that point that either I was going to kill someone or that I was going to be killed. Being as though I've been shot. I mean, it was just horrible. It just went really, really bad. And so the bottom line was, prior to me having almost 9 years clean, prior to my last incarceration, um, I left God out of everything. And I was raised up in church, all types of things. I'm not just saying because we're on here. I just know what has worked for me.
Mm-hmm.
But these past almost 17 years, I'm in my 17th year. I have to have God in my life. I cannot, that's just for me. And I'm not trying to put religion on anybody, anything else. I know at the end of the day, I know that no one in the world could ever stop me from using narcotics or drugs. Nobody, not even myself, but for the higher power that I believe in. My turning point came when I came home from prison, shackled up, still had marks on my ankles and stuff today, and I knew that I just couldn't do it anymore. I didn't even think about coming home to use anything else, because I was drained and tired, and I knew that if I came home and used, it wasn't even fentanyl during that time, but I knew I would die immediately, or I would be back in prison for the rest of my life. I was tired. It just happened. It just happened. And because I knew that the last time, and I'm gonna be honest with you, when the last time when I was and they had sent me away, and I was locked up, that was the first time. I never went through any withdrawals. I don't know how it happened. I promise you, I don't know how it happened, but it happened. I didn't go through any withdrawals or anything else. So I was like, I must be on my way. So when I came home, or the light bulb came on immediately, I remember the CEO, she said, Neverdon, when we gonna get these shackles off you, just like that. She said, you don't have to run. I said, well, I'm not going anywhere. I knew I wasn't going to go anywhere. I was tired. That was it. I had been through the abuse. I had been through physical abuse. I pushed down basement steps. I've lost babies, being shot, being raped, all molestation, all types of things which have happened to me. And I knew that even at the age that I was when I came home, there's no way that I was going to try to do that. I didn't want anything from the time that I was born to whatever. I knew how I had been raised. I knew what it was like to live clean. I knew exactly what I had wanted in life. And I feel once you get a taste of being clean, I don't care what you go through. When you get a taste of what it is to be on the other side of something more productive, where I'm able to put myself first in God, I know anything is possible. And since then, it has just been the most. God has just been so good to me. He's been so good to me. He's been so good to me. So why should I not be good to somebody else? And that's what I do every day when I get up. I have a purpose in life, and my purpose is not for me to be treated any kind of way, not even to allow anybody to treat me any kind of way. The only way that I keep going is I get up every day and I try to give back. And I do the best that I can. Like I am so grateful. I never thought that I would have a home where I have people who come straight off the street and they come into my home and I take care of them. Well, it is my home because it is mine. They don't live with me at my other house, but and I take care of them. And all I want them to do is get what they need. So and let them know that you can do exactly what I've done, or people I may have used to get high with. And I know that they don't think that they have a shot of hope of anything. And they see me, they're like, Neverdon, yeah, I'm still doing what I'm doing. But if you try this, you can get there because I know it works. It's not going to be easy, but it's doable. And because I know that anything that I've done once, I'm capable of doing it again. Because I can scare myself because I know the things that I've done. I know the harm that I've brought to people. I just try to let them know, like, it's okay. You're going to one day forgive yourself so you'll be able to move on. Because we don't get like this just for ourselves. You can. It's one of the selfish things that you can do. You have to give back. You got to give it back.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so glad that question came, from our audience. But that's the most powerful time of this whole evening is you sharing your story throughout, but just saying how a part of overcoming is giving back. And so many of us overcome for ourselves and not thinking about the community that, we are called to serve as overcomers. So I appreciate your testimony and you sharing this evening. And again, everyone, this is Robin Neverdon as our guest. She, you can give them your information.
Absolutely.
In need of care.
Absolutely. My name is Robin Neverdon. My number is 443-629-0886. As I have Robin Neverdon Consulting, where I help in all healthcare. I'm also a CPR trainer. I help people get in treatment outside of my own. Even if you're not appropriate for my program, I make sure that you get to go to another program. I assist with helping with resources, housing, whatever it is to get you back on track or your loved one. You should give me a call. And my number again is 443-629-0886.
Thank you for sharing with us. And the number to the Renaissance Center, because we are partnering with people like Robin to help, is 410-409-0025. If you don't call yourself, you get your number. But also, so we can help with the mental health piece, because remember, that is a part of the struggle in recovery and with suicide attempts and ideation with everyone of all ages. But also the universal number, we're so grateful for 988, which is a crisis, and it's a crisis hotline.
It is.
It's also the hotline for any suicidal information, but any crisis. The crisis could be I got put out of my home, last night. Whatever your crisis is, they can help you walk through that crisis. And they have trained professionals on the other end of 988, just like we have trained professionals at Renaissance Center, and you have Robin as a trained professional and a person experienced with helping people with addictions. So give us a call, but you always have 988. That's an easy number to remember. If you can't remember, you can always look us up on the website. So check out the Renaissance Center. Thanks for hanging in there with us tonight. And we'll have to have Robin back so she can have her full hour, but we were close to it. We just know people, time is precious. And we thank you, Robin, for not, being able to stay on longer, even though in spite of our technical delays. And thanks, audience. We'll be back next month with another topic, and we appreciate you sharing your evening with us. Thanks again.
Thank you.